Welcome back to Divided We Stand. I'm Victoria Lang, along with Joe Aguirre and Rob from I'll Piss You Off Shortly. You already know that's going to be live at 9 right after this. But first, I'm glad that you're here. You better be here. You better be sticking around because we're doing this, okay? We're here. We're doing this first. So, we're going to be starting off by talking about the vaccine. Last week, when I was listening back to that show, I was like, Joe's right. I do sound a little bit anti-vax. I was getting accused of that because I circled back around and I was like, I don't really understand why we have to get it if we all still have to wear masks and we all still have to social distance. I was just saying that the messaging that they were putting out was not really persuading me. But today, I came across an article saying that the CDC says that people who have both COVID vaccines, they're fully covered, can start to go out without masks in certain situations, obviously. Can be around people, are not going to have to socially distance anymore, are pretty much going to be able to do everything. They don't need to quarantine if they've been exposed, obviously, unless you have symptoms of it. And life is looking pretty good for people who are fully vaccinated.
Yeah. This is amazing news. This is what we want to hear. I think this is the progress that we've been looking for. And it's come pretty much controversy free at this point. Other than, well, we'll talk about some people like Wendy Williams.
Oh yeah,
still isn't quite on board despite actually watching a doctor literally get the vaccine, but that's fine. We've been complaining from day one that we hate the lockdown and we hate the restrictions. And as they start to ease up and as people start to get vaccinated and this nightmare we're living through ends, I don't even like, what's the objection? What's another couple months of wearing a mask and social distancing if we can just be done with this finally and adjust to like life again as we knew it?
right. And that's the biggest thing with all of these celebrities because I feel like they hold the biggest influence on other people. Because when you have people like Wendy Williams, I don't know if anybody saw it, but she went on the Dr. Oz show and he asked her, do you plan on getting the vaccine? And she said no, that she doesn't trust it after seeing literally Dr. Oz getting the vaccine. That makes absolutely no sense. The only comment that she had was that he looked great, that he looked sexy while he was doing it.
Can I say the only thing, like, they chose the wrong person to influence the Black community if that's what they were trying to do to like put some impersonation on getting the vaccine. Wendy Williams is not the person I would be like, hey, this is the person we need on this show to like promote getting this vaccine to the Black community. Would not be Wendy Williams, but you know, it's neither here nor there. I actually, I've expressed my concern, or even just, you know, mood on the vaccine in totality. But
I think that there's that for sure. I saw another show talk about this, and the amount of shit that Wendy Williams has in her face, the amount of Botox, the amount of toxins that she has in her face, and she does not trust the COVID vaccine, the amount of things that she will get injected, but she will not get the COVID vaccine. She does not trust it.
I think she trusted her husband a lot more than she trusted the vaccine, obviously, and we see where that got her. But hey, I'm just, you know.
I just really don't understand, because if you trust that, that's just as risky. And I feel like she could justify it by saying, like, I guess millions of people across the world get the COVID or get plastic surgery, but they also get the COVID vaccine.
Look at the influence, though. Look at society. We're relying on social influence to, to outweigh the means of getting vaccinations. We're relying on celebrities to say, hey, I got it, you guys got to follow suit. I mean, let's play it out. Let's let people make their own decisions. So hey,
Rob, I'm gonna have to throw a hard disagree on what you're saying, and I think it's unfortunate that, I mean, we live in a country where celebrity influence is important. Joe Rogan was very for getting a vaccine, and now suddenly Big Joe's not so sure. Now Joe kind of wants to feel things out.
But that's what I'm saying. You're relying on social influence, and they're wishy-washy themselves.
Well, sure. I mean, again, and this is, I hate to say this, and I hate to put blame on this, but it's America 2021, and that's what we do. We have to assign blame to everything.
I think I'm the only one standing ground still.
All the anti-vaccine rhetoric is coming from the right. 100% is coming from the right. And it's got elements of lunacy because, of course, you got the anti-vaxxers in there, and you got the QAnon nut jobs in there as well.
Well, that's because it's
it's
political.
But the problem is these nonsense articles and objections. 35 million people, by the way, not a single person's died from getting the vaccine.
I'm not. I
mean, not even Trump didn't even get shut out that much.
Now, I saw an interesting post. I will say, I'll say post from somebody who I deem to post credible things. I'm not going to the bank with it, but it showed some things, and I didn't understand the full article. But there were certain deaths related to. I'm not saying that in the nation, but internationally. I would like to do some more research and possibly bring it up next week. Because just to kind of caveat, I think there might be an asterisk to that statement. That's all. I'm placing an asterisk to that statement, Joe.
But would it be fair to say that if there was say 100,000 people had died of the vaccine, we'd know about it? If it's
I don't think it's that caliber.
People worldwide have died from it. I'm going to say I like the odds.
I would correlate it honestly to the same, like less than 1% of people that have actually died from the infection, or what is it, 1 to 2% of people from infected versus deaths. So if you look at how many people vaccinated, not that many people. You know what I'm saying? It hasn't reached that same people as infected. So I would probably say maybe less than 1% have become a fatal case. Not saying that's 100%, but I would kind of just combat you a little bit. I would say that it would be maybe less than 1% of the actual those vaccinated. And like I said, put an asterisk to it. Let me do some more research, and I'll come back to it next week.
What's 1% of 35 million? Like 3,500? Again,
right, and there's like a chance of dying every single
35
time
people
you go
have been
outside, like you drive a car. And people were saying that when we were talking about the coronavirus in general, like, oh, why are these people so scared? Because you could die when you're going and driving on the highway. Why is everybody freaking out about the coronavirus? So to that, I have to say almost like, why is everybody so scared of the vaccine? That could literally get us out of this. Because
but also Victoria, cars don't spread car accidents.
Well, I'm just saying.
I mean, again, the correlation to you can go out and die, it's not the same. You're not going to have a car accident and your mom and your grandmother are going to die from it. That's the difference between making the comparison to anything else is nonsense. Truly just nonsense. Doesn't even make sense to make that argument. The problem is, and again, as we know, people like us probably get it, have a couple of really bad months, sick as a dog. I've got a bunch of friends that have had COVID. I was just talking to my buddy the other day. 3 months, dude. This guy was virtually useless and just beat down. He's fine now. His uncle died. I had a student over the holidays who also contracted COVID, and his grandmother died on Christmas Day from the same COVID that he got. The whole family was spreading it amongst themselves. So we know who's dying from this, but we also know, I mean, not for nothing. Look in the sports world, dude. How many of these guys that tested positive for COVID had fights postponed, came back and got beat up? I mean, there's an effect, a long-lasting effect. We don't know enough about COVID-19 at this point. We should be thankful that there's a vaccine, and we should just hope that we're not amongst the people that ever get it, because it is terribly unpleasant. There's a heart condition that some people, I think 30% of people develop. So it's a good idea. Again, speaking of the celebrities, Elon Musk, another idiot.
Right. This is the one that has me the most like angry, and it seems like I literally could not find the clip of him talking about it anywhere. I saw it a little while ago. He went on some news outlet saying that he would never go get the vaccine. Him and his family are not going to get it. They don't get the flu vaccine. And that's the thing that I've been seeing all of these celebrities, Joe Rogan, Wendy Williams, and Elon Musk, all say that they don't get the flu vaccine. So why would they get the COVID vaccine? And that's the argument that I see in day-to-day life, honestly, the most frequently. And that is the one that irritates me the most, because when you go and you get the flu vaccine, or when you make the decision to not get the flu vaccine, that doesn't affect the rest of the population like the coronavirus vaccine does. We're never just going to collectively as a society get rid of the flu. There's a new strain of it every year, and each like shot pretty much comes from like what we know from like what's going on in Australia. That's what we base our strain of the flu shot off of. So we have basically the same time for development of the shot in that area too. So it's like, if you trust the flu shot, then you should definitely trust the coronavirus shot, but they also kind of have nothing to do with each other, because we're never just going to get rid of the flu. You know what I mean? But the reason why everybody has to get the coronavirus shot is so it doesn't turn into the new flu. So it doesn't keep mutating like it already has and turn into something like this, where every winter we have to see what the new strand of the coronavirus is going to be. And then we have to get vaccinated every year for this and the flu.
Right. I mean, again, if you want to go home, you want to get out and not wear a mask, then just let's do this. Let's just do this. Let's just and then we'll end it. And the stupidest political fight in the history of the world will be over.
So I've just looked, kind of go backtrack, not to backtrack too bad, but apparently there have been a couple deaths with these things, but I don't want to keep pushing that agenda. But there have been, according to the CDC VAERS reports, apparently 966 deaths from Moderna and Pfizer COVID vaccines.
I'm sorry, who's that from?
CDC VAERS reports, the vaccine adverse event. The vaccine adverse event reporting system request.
955 people?
966.
966. Oh, that was
between December 14th. Between December 14th and February 19th.
Wow. Out of 35 million.
But you know what I'm saying? Well, yeah.
Still like the odds.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. I like the odds. I'm also of the odds of, hey, you know, I'll wait it out and see how it goes when it's my turn. When it's my turn to get the shot, you know, when it's not like when I can just.
Are you not essential? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not essential. I'm essential to myself. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to overshoot myself. Like when I know I can just go walk in and like there's not a line. I don't have to like go on the computer and like get like 5 canceled appointments. Then you know what I'm saying? Like when it's just like in and out in 5 minutes, that's count me in.
Can I tell you something, just so everybody knows? Because obviously I've been pushing for this from the get-go. But I mean, I've gotten the flu shot in my life like 5 times. Mm-hmm. I mean, like literally, if I have a doctor's appointment and it's flu season, my doctor will say, "Hey, you want the flu shot?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And as luck would have it, generally she walks in and she's like, "Here, it's the one where you blow it up your nose." I like that one. Are we taking questions from the chat room? Fire away. Of course we're taking questions. Anything you got. Jared made a good point too, by the way. When you're swinging your arms, that's your freedom. You can swing your arms. When your arm swings and hits somebody in the face, well, that's assault. Now you're in trouble. So again, if you want to break this down to like a more basic thought, that's a really good one. You have the freedom to do a lot of things. You don't have the freedom to spread a virus that has been identified by scientists who are real and who really do science. Right. I've been arguing with people. I've been having the Dr. Fauci argument again. Go look at what he said. Yeah, look at what he said. Dr. Fauci gets data. He says, all right, you don't need to wear a mask. Then the data says, ooh, they should wear masks. And then he says that. Is that inconsistent? Well, if you understand science and how science works, no, that's consistent with science. It's inconsistent with your logic because you're not a scientist. It's just like when people are like, well, a theory's not real. The theory of gravity is a real thing, though, right? You don't dispute that.
Mhm.
And
Now,
yes, it's called the theory of gravity, not the law of gravity, for a reason. So scientific theories are not the same either. So this is, again, where the layman's like, oh, I don't understand it. You're not meant to understand it. Listen to the scientists. Listen to the guy who literally beat the AIDS virus. That's what Dr. Fauci did.
I mean, now when we talk about freedom, where do we feel on businesses? I know it's been coming up now on companies, especially corporations, allowing making it mandatory for these vaccines. Or we can hold on. Let's answer this question first, and we'll go back to mine.
Why do conservatives value Twitter queens like Matt Gaetz and MTG? Who's that? The Marjorie Taylor Greene, rather than experts that actually save lives? Well, listen, this is exactly what it boils down to, right? We've made a couple things in this country oddly political. Murder being one of them. Again, even if you're a White Lives Matter person, you should be upset that cops are shooting unarmed white people, and Rob, apparently more of them from what these
a lot more.
What you should be
And
outraged that cops are shooting innocent people of
period.
any race, creed, color, or sex.
Right. We clearly have an issue.
We don't want the cops to shoot people. Slow that down, right? Now, again, I'm very pro-police. I think that we need to straighten this whole mess out.
Yes.
We need to straighten out the police department. And I've said, I think it's on the police who have been the bully in this situation to make amends with the community. But they'll solve that. I can't do everything in one night. Again, listen, there's people who believed that this was a big liberal conspiracy with China and the CDC and the WHO, and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz are going to continue to spread that, as did Donald Trump, which is why a lot of us didn't like Donald Trump. I was a Republican my whole life. Yeah. And then this idiot got off an elevator, and I was like, oh, the racism is already unbearable. I got to bounce. But when people are feeding you what you want to hear, it's really easy to listen to that. I don't subscribe to that thought.
Especially uncontested. That's why they're spewing it on Twitter. That's why everybody can. I mean, Twitter has been a hotspot for so long. So, you know what I mean? They can spew it, they can share it, they can go on about it, they can block whoever they want to. And that's it, right? They have their base camp. And consistent, shake my head, for the people that don't seem to understand it, the science is going to keep changing, just like it always has forever. Get used to it.
Right.
Good point.
Well, also, don't forget, the coronavirus was also SARS. It was the bird flu, the avian flu. I mean, these are all just different strands of the coronavirus. They're all in the coronavirus kingdom. And we've seen a bunch of these over the last 10 years or so. And the funny thing is you can actually watch, when Obama was still president, Dr. Fauci testifying before Congress. And what he said was, I just lost my train of thought. Dr. Fauci. What was I just? You
were saying what testifying.
Dr. Fauci was saying that these were getting worse, and that eventually there was going to be a coronavirus that was going to be a worldwide pandemic. And fortunately for us, Dr. Fauci and those scientists were already working on it. Now, we know how mishandled this thing was, and for any conservative who wants to, there's one person who is spreading the most misinformation, misleading the American public for his own gain, and then was stupid enough to tell Bob Woodward about it, of all people. That's why we're where we're at. So conservatives, you have no right to be angry. Put your damn masks on. Couple more months of this, and then we can get back to like arguing about statues and other nonsense. Glad to answer your question. No, we don't all share the same political opinions. I lifelong conservative. I think the liberals are very dumb. not in their ideology. I've always been a social conservative, a social liberal, and a fiscal conservative. Ronald Reagan was my guy. That's my background for GH, who was asking a little bit about where we're coming at. I believe in common sense.
Yeah,
I believe that the party that I am literally a card-carrying member of,
Did you
and still am for that matter. Oh, dude, I mean, they've been begging me for 4 years to send it. I'm not sending a dollar until you guys straighten this out. I don't remember when the Conservative Party turned into the White Nationalist Party. I'm not interested in it. And I tell you what, I'm not going to buy into the new right-wing fairy tales. Let me tick off my list. I prepared a little list for tonight. These are all of the things that we've been arguing about over the last couple of months. And very stupid. Confederate statues, right, that honor the heritage of the South, but that were built in the 1960s during the Civil Rights Movement. The XL Keystone Pipeline that everyone's upset about was costing you the gas prices to go up. Not built yet. Not a real thing. The Green New Deal, of course, being blamed for the electrical grid problems in Texas. Again, Green New Deal's just an idea that a bunch of liberals had and weren't able to articulate well enough to get any sort of support around it, even within their own party. Dr. Seuss, not canceled. As we know, the Seuss estate decided some of the racist books that old Dr. Seuss was a little bit of a racist. Can you blame him? He lived in the really racist times of America. Sorry, Victoria. People were really racist back then. I'll be honest, in reading the Dr. Seuss books, it's tame. It's tame. What was the Song of the South? If you want real racism in cartoons, just call Disney. The FBI investigating the missing or the theft of Lady Gaga's dogs, to the point where the FBI literally issued a rare statement to say that they were not working on a case.
Okay, but
then you flipped out about Mr. Potato Head, and today apparently it's Pepe Le Pew, the rapey skunk, is causing outrage in the conservative media world, which tells me something. You know what it tells me, Victoria? That Joe Biden must be doing an okay job so far. This is fake outrage. This is, to me, 2016. You guys were upset that Hillary lost, and you wore the pink hats and you screamed in the air, and that was stupid too. Who were you screaming at? Nobody. You were having a hard time dealing with a loss. I understand that, and the conservatives are doing it too. All this is screaming into the air with a stupid hat, and nobody cares. This is fake outrage. When Joe Biden starts doing stupid stuff, and I'm sure he will, I'll be all over it. That's all we'll talk about.
I can't wait till he comes out with the blue hats. I'm totally rocking a blue hat just because.
I agree that there's clearly nothing bigger to be talking about. Joe Biden is not doing, he is not the reason behind all of these things by any means. But what I will say is the media does do this thing of like making subjects seem like they are different than they are. Like the whole like Lady Gaga dog thing. Like I don't think that anybody was really like, oh my God, Lady Gaga lost her dogs. But like the dog walker like literally got shot in the chest. You know what I mean? And like he's still in the hospital and he's in really crucial condition. I think that should have been the headline. Like that is something worthy of talking about. Or like, you know what I mean? I just feel like the way that these things are being presented to the table, or like the Mr. Potato Head thing, I think that was literally something to get people talking about Mr. Potato Head that had nothing to do with gender, but it turned into something where everybody thought that all these angry Facebook moms who don't want to gender their children are like, we need a toy that represents that, when that is really not the case at all. Nobody asked for that.
Furthest thing.
And that's what I'm kind of sick of it being coming across as. No liberal was like, I'm going to complain about Mr. Potato Head, because why do we still have Barbie and Ken then? Like, you know what I mean? There are much more obvious things that we would go at, not fucking Mr. Potato Head.
And that's the thing. It's getting kind of sickening. And I think a lot of this also has to do with a lot of businesses just trying to make right or even make a name for themselves. Not to say that Hasbro has to, but you know what I'm saying? You kind of stir up nothing that nobody's asked for, and you stir up the pot. But once again, these are all items that these people choose to discuss instead of tackling the real subjects, right? The real matters at hand, right? They hold accountability to corporation executives for changing of anything that they have the right to, right? Like Disney has the right, or whoever owns Warner Brothers has the right to say, no, we don't want Pepe Le Pew anymore to be representative. Hasbro has a right to sit there and say, we don't want sexual orientation representing a potato, right? But at the same time, but at the same time,
we're really good at this.
We're trying to get better at using our words, but at the same time, they don't want to hold these domestic terrorists that are flooded on the FBI wanted list, hold them accountable. They're putting so much energy into, all these toys and everything, and not the energy into the people that actually tried to take over and literally had a coup against their government, when they're supposed to be so government forward and everything else. We're talking about Mr. Potato Head, though. It worked, no outrage. Exactly.
Yeah. Again, I mean, so this is a funny thing, too. You remember when there was the whole big Goya thing?
Yep.
And Ivanka went on social media. It was like, buy Goya. And people were like, that's a violation of the Hatch Act. You're not supposed to pitch products.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I think it's the mindset where conservatives are not. Again, somebody asked why Joe Biden left Dr. Seuss out of National Reading Day. It's not Dr. Seuss Day. I know a lot of schools doll it up like it's
I thought it was Dr. Seuss Day. I even said it earlier.
National Reading Day, and there's great authors like, Mark Twain or Shakespeare. A million of them.
Shel Silverstein.
Pick one. Yes.
Heard of them?
There's lots of them. Again, to me, the same people who... here we go. The same people who were upset that you were making bakeries make cakes for gay people are the same people who are outraged that eBay won't sell racist books.
Right.
I'm just like, where's your priority at?
They don't
you're talking about human beings versus racists.
Right. People are all upset. There's this clothing website. It's called Shein. They're selling a swastika necklace. And apparently there's some other kind of religious meaning behind a swastika other than the very clear one that we all know. And people are trying to get the necklace still on the website. Even though, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it does
why
have
are we fighting for this?
A Hindu origin. There we go. A Hindu origin. I think I explained this last week. Not too in depth into it, but it was like a peaceful sign. But yeah, Kyle Faber says yes. Shel Silverstein. That's funny. But that is crazy that they're promoting this now. And it's a marketing campaign. They know that these things are going to sell. And a lot of the times is people just buy it just to be confrontational and just to fall into a trend, not realizing that that stuff really has horrible meaning. And it's not even something to be funny with, just to piss off black people or anybody else. These are people, they're so dumb. They're literally promoting things that you're hurting people that run your money. That run I don't know if this sounds racist, but I know a lot of Jewish people that run the American economy. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So are those the people you really want to offend? I'm just saying. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? I don't know. Maybe that's not the most PC way to say it, but that's literally true. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, whatever.
I think people are just too tied into identity. And whatever values come with whatever certain identities there are. And I think ultimately, again, people want to shape the news based on what they feel or what they believe, not what reality is. And it's easy, right? The media reports what is happening. And if you don't like it, it's because probably your side isn't doing the right thing. But you're not really, I mean, you should be mad at your side, but you're like, well, the messenger is saying what we're doing. Yes, that's sort of how this works.
Right. And this is what I also don't understand is especially with the skunk thing or whatever, I have no idea like who that even is. And I'm like, I just don't understand. Like, it clearly has not been a relevant thing for this long. And I just feel like if they didn't make the announcement, like, we're not going to have this in there anymore, then nobody would even be talking about it. You know what I mean? If they just took it out without saying anything, then we wouldn't even be having this discussion. There would be no outrage. So they're clearly trying to, you know what I mean?
Stir the pot. If they obviously knew they were going to take away that scene, if nobody would have known. No, if they wouldn't have said nothing, nobody would have known, and it wouldn't have been outrage.
Right. And the fact that this has something to do with politics at this point is strange. It is odd.
But you think about it. What's really going on in politics right now? They have to feed something. Outside of COVID, they just passed a stimulus bill. They're flat dead. Flat dead with politics until Biden does something, or fails to do something or does something that nobody, a majority doesn't like. That's it. So they have to kind of like March has always been, though. Haven't you noticed like March has always kind of been that end of February or mid-February? March is kind of like that dead spot in the year. And then, things like all these crazy things happen and then going about our year. Like once April comes around, once this weather breaks and everything, everybody starts going back outside because let's face it. If anybody saw the videos and stuff from Atlanta this weekend, All-Star weekend, yeah, like that COVID stuff, everybody's lifting all these bans and everything else like that. By the time April, May comes around, it's gonna feel like regular United States 2019 again. Like COVID what? So? I think so. By July 4th, it's gonna be lit. 4th of July is gonna be lit in the US. Literally, it's gonna be
biggest celebration since the first one, I would say.
Yeah.
Joe, do you think so? Do you think that we're gonna be out of this by July?
I would think. I mean, I don't know exactly. I mean, again, looking at the vaccine timeline, I mean, it would seem like that would be a reasonable amount of time. Again, you're already seeing the CDC, if you're vaccinated, is loosening up, your social distancing and your mask. So I don't think. I mean, is it inconceivable that 4 or 5 months from now this could be finite? Let's hope so.
GH in the comments actually did just raise like a really good point, saying that identity politics is not the downfall of this country. It's been around since the founding, and even before this nation was actually born on identity politics, i.e. Puritans and religious freedom. And I actually couldn't agree more.
Well, I don't want to go on one of my anti-religion rampages, but again, I think that plays a really big part in this. Again, just today, Herschel Walker, former professional football player, was testifying before Congress about why black people don't deserve reparations. Right, because we live in some weird bizarro world, where again, to me, look, this has always been the ultimate fight, the ultimate argument, all these things we argue about. This country's still the haves and the have-nots. Bernie Sanders, whatever you want to think or say about the guy, it makes one solid point when he talks about the 1% and how the 1% takes all the money and has all the stuff and really mistreats the rest of the country, and then somehow sows the seeds of, social issues to stir the pot and get people angry. We totally lose that sight, though, that it's again, this is the haves and the have-nots, and they're trying to convince you that people who are on welfare are doing better than you to make you angry at them, not realizing, I mean, they're making 430 times what their employees are making hourly. Something wrong there. Yeah. But that's what this country was founded on. It was founded. And again, when people want to talk about the electoral college, the electoral college was not put into place because they were worried about liberal cities. It was put into place because, well, the founding fathers didn't think that the regular people were. Well, you didn't even have a vote, but even people like me, I'm a landowner. I own a home, Rob. But I wouldn't have been privy to that. I would get to tell my electoral vote guy because they didn't even want people like me to have a say in who the president was. That's their club. It's always been that way. We get really tied into what our identity is. And again, if you're basing all of your thoughts off of, oh, I'm a Christian, so everything is this, Herschel Walker said reparations weren't in the teachings of Jesus Christ. What does that have to do with the American Constitution? Why would they even put somebody like that in front of Congress spewing nonsense?
I believe
that's the sort of stuff we need to sort of separate from.
You shouldn't be able to use anybody. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, it's just I think that completely takes away from everything that this country was founded on. When you have somebody who's going up there speaking on their own behalf or creating laws based on one religion, or you know what I mean? It's just not okay having a president saying that something is right or something is wrong based off of religion and calling it a fact. That's not okay. And that's not what this country was founded on. And that's what we're trying to get as far away from as we can. I think that having values as a country, and especially as people that are based on our identity, is really important. But when you group something like the vaccine or something like Black Lives Matter or something that is not just personal and you make that a governmental issue, like that's when it's not okay. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Very, very much so.
Very valid.
That's all. That kind of lets me get into this next topic that I kind of want to talk about briefly, because I think that we'll be able to draw a pretty quick conclusion on it. But recently there's been talk of, well, not even just recently, for the past, honestly, decade, there's been talk about introducing LGBTQ plus history into the classroom, and the Equality Act might change that. That prohibits discrimination of the basis of sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity, and that's moving through the Senate after being passed by the House of Representatives, and it could affect what is being taught in classrooms. And everything that was kind of put through on this act and is kind of trying to get passed through now was kind of drawn back when Trump was in office. He made it a lot harder for people to get housing based on their sexual identity and stuff like that. So I do think that this is a good thing. I think that we need to be educating people on social issues just in general. We need to do a better job on teaching our race issues. We need to talk about Stonewall. We need to talk about all of these different major historic events because they're really important. We can't shy away from it because of the stigma behind it. But I do not think that we need to take it where the Mr. Potato Head conversation kind of gets thrown in there. You know what I mean? We need to make sure that we're not necessarily talking about sexual orientation in the classroom. You know what I mean? But I also feel like nobody is really advocating for that. I just feel like that needs to be clear that that's not what we're advocating for. You know what I mean?
I hear you. I think the toughest part about that is, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
Mhm.
I think the toughest part about that is when it comes down to LGBTQ plus rights, it all dwindles down to not orientation, but sexual preference, right? That's what makes those ideologies what they are, right? But I think maybe one of the things is that if you just premise it based off of who they were to the culture and like what certain things hindered it, and maybe cater it to the actual like belief portion of like people were just wrong in believing, like caring about what people did with their, you know what I'm saying, like what they did in their personal life, you know what I'm saying, and it maybe not like really. I wonder if there's a way to cater to somebody's personal preference or like sexual preference without, like you said, without mentioning the sex, or if you're going to mention the sex, separate it as far as, hey, here's how to be safe if you choose this route, and incorporate that into the health class or the sexual ed class that they do, right? And then just make it, instead of it like classifying it and say, hey, this is going to be LGBTQ plus, or even Black History, like I say with Black History Month, just put it in there. Hey, this is Stonewall. Stonewall happened, this is just a part of my history class. And and Stonewall, this happened because people were ignorant and didn't believe that, people could love whoever they wanted to love, and you know what I'm saying, and go further in that aspect, instead of making it just strictly about sex.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing.
But I think the argument from the right typically is that they don't share the same. You just said that Stonewall happened because people were ignorant and
spewed hatred and all that.
Of course, all of those things, and again, all based on religion and religious views and values, if you will. So people are uncomfortable with how it's going to be presented, right? Is it going to come across as anti-police, since the cops were the ones at Stonewall causing all the trouble? So again, of course, this stuff should be taught. I majored in history in college, and we talked about, the idea that it's American independence, right? War of 1812, Civil War, Reconstruction, and they just sort of blaze through. Like, then there was Jim Crow, and then the Roaring 20s. We don't really focus on the negatives in history. I mean, even Vietnam is not something that you generally study much in your history classes in school. It's not something that we're particularly revved up about. And so history should be presented as just with factual information, and it shouldn't be biased. It should just present the facts, and people will draw their own conclusions based on how things played out.
Right. I remember learning about the Holocaust, and I remember being told that in Germany now they put in their textbooks, like they don't put information about it because they don't want kids to know about that, because that's where it happened and stuff like that. And I find it really ironic that we were taught that, and the same exact thing happens in this country. We don't get taught about half of the stuff and half of the historical events and half of the people that made this country what it is now. Instead, we're focused on people like Christopher Columbus. What's up with that? So that's what I have a little bit of an issue about. You know what I mean? It took us this long to get away from people like that. I just definitely do think that it is going to be an issue of, I do not think that it is appropriate to have the conversation of, oh, there needs to be any kind of coming out in the classroom or any kind of discussion of anybody's sexual orientation or anything like that. I don't think that needs to be a conversation, but I think that we need to be talking about the history of this country. You know what I mean? I don't even think that necessarily in the health classes that needs to be a thing, because realistically, the sexual health education for heterosexual kids is not up to standard either. So it's just like, whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe upping those standards.
Right? I mean, yeah, just upping the standards in general. But I don't think that this is the conversation that necessarily needs to be had. You know what I mean?
Well, again, I think if you ignore history, you're sort of doomed to repeat it. I mean, there's a line, something about that. Not learning from it, and it's true. And again, if you gloss over all this stuff, if you don't talk about Harvey Milk, if you don't address that these things happened, then you're doing the next generation a disservice. And I would even say in Germany, why wouldn't you teach about the Holocaust? It's not something you're proud of, and you're certainly not going to be teaching it as that, but to pretend that these things didn't happen or weren't part of the history is just, to me, a terrible disservice to people who are literally trying to learn.
Yeah, go ahead.
I cut out, so I missed that.
It was beautiful.
But I guess that would be like, what? Say they don't do it, right? Say, well, of course. So say we kind of exclude all these bad things from history. does it necessarily mean that we're going to go back? You know what I mean? We have a chance to do those things, or maybe it's just like within how many generations does it take to say, okay, you kind of wipe that ignorance, because maybe if it's not there, it's not even like it gives it a chance to be hyped. I don't know. This is just me just kind of like thinking outside the box. And just, just kind of,
opens opportunity for like miseducation and stuff. And like, even I feel like we're experiencing it like a lot right now, even with something as dumb as like, I don't know, like Whoa Vicky or something like that, like somebody like that. Like, she's just so misinformed, and I feel like she built her career off of being so ignorant, and I feel like now she's kind of trying to take it back because she wasn't educated on how harmful what she was saying actually was. You know what I mean? The history behind some of those things. Or even like when white girls go out wearing like box braids and stuff like that, the history behind that. You don't get educated on that kind of stuff, and it actually makes you look like a clown. You know what I mean? So I just feel like even stuff that's obviously way more severe than that, it can get a lot worse from just having miseducation, but just stuff like that.
There was a book that came out right around World War II that it was a fiction book, but basically what happens is somebody comes out and claims that they found the tomb of Jesus and that he wasn't really the Messiah and that the whole thing's all a myth, which is eerily probably true. And in the book, there's just chaos and people are abandoning their families and raping and murdering and stealing, and then they find out that no, in fact, it was a Jewish conspiracy. Jesus, it was real. And obviously everybody feels shame and everybody has to get back to acting normal again. And, for a lot of people, there's, again, their religious identity is too tied into their politics. And again, something that's not based on any sort of reality or statistically factual information, and you're trying to apply it to 2020 or 2021 medical situations or I mean, again, I think that people need to like snap into reality now. These sort of old myths that we've been hanging on to for a long time. I just was having a conversation with somebody who refuses to believe that Pluto's not a planet. Again, you can't make people believe things that they don't. It looks like a planet to me. Okay.
Damn flat earthers.
Then there's 9. Whatever. I don't care. I don't. But no, I mean, history needs to be taught. I don't lie to my kids. I don't like lying to people in general. I don't think that's ever a good idea. You don't really get anywhere. You don't make any progress without lying and being overly protective of your kids, Victoria. I don't think that's useful either. So again, to not teach kids in Germany about the Holocaust, to not teach kids about our poor history with slavery and with LGBTQ and with women and with foreigners and now Muslims, pick a group. I mean, we found a way to make everybody's lives miserable. A weird initiation process in this country.
Right. And I also, just one last thing, talking about gay people or like stuff like that is not going to make your kids gay, because they're still gay people, and pretty much everything that gets shown is straight. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so how would they?
I've mentioned this. I mentioned this before. When I went to Catholic school growing up, and we didn't wear Halloween costumes. Okay. And then they finally let us wear Halloween costumes, and there were a couple of black kids who went to the school. Rob, there's 110 kids in the school, and there's a brother and sister that are black, and that's it.
That's it.
But it gets better because they're also Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, wow.
So not only did they were the 2 black kids in the school, and now it's Halloween, and they let us wear costumes this year, and these 2 don't show up in costumes. And so, of course, the white kid's like, you're too poor for a Halloween costume. No, it's not that. We don't celebrate it. Why not? What are you, a weirdo? I'm a Jehovah's Witness. What's that? You know what I mean? And it's like, I always thought
that same bigotry.
It would have been so much more useful to us if the teacher would have been like, all right, guys,
here's
what's going on. These guys, here's what they're, and explain it to us. so that it's not weird. Like, oh, well, that sucks for you guys, but I get it. No, that's you know.
But
And then
that's also
they
hard.
like or they don't. But again, we don't want to have these conversations, and I don't know why.
Well, I mean, for me personally, being the sole black guy in a Catholic middle school, like it sucked when you didn't even when the teachers. I think the only like non-ignorant teacher I had was like my science teacher, and he was a guy, and like he could actually relate to me. Outside of that, they were fucking delusional. They were freaking delusional. They were out. They were out of it. They were still. They were in their. The teachers were in their own conservative ways, right? So yeah, it's tough when you have those types teaching those types, and then you have somebody, you know what I mean, coming in that's not of that type, and yeah, that's where you get that ignorance and continued ignorance from.
It's also stunning that in this day and age that there would be something called the Equality Act, and that there would be people that are like, I don't like that. What?
Yeah.
Come on.
So, moral of the story is, do I think that there is obviously bigger issues in our curriculum and in our school systems right now? Obviously, duh. But would it hurt to throw in there some more, just honestly, history and just stuff that may not paint us in the best light, but just is real? No, like that's not going to hurt us. And I think that it is really necessary, especially when kids go out into the real world. We should definitely be.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy, it
You
looks
wanna-
like our dear friend Victoria is having a little bit of an issue with her internet. We'll give her a moment to come back. Meanwhile, let's get ready to wrap things up. The Supreme Court refused to take up Donald Trump's suit about the Wisconsin election. He was trying to get, Rob, only 220,000 votes tossed out.
Only to would that have made a difference?
He lost by 20,000. So the 200 to throw out 220,000, he would have been in really good shape.
Really, really good shape.
Yeah. And so, but there is no, again, you need evidence. And the argument, we're sure the argument was that the state legislatures changed the law to make voting easier. And it's like, and again, as somebody who was a Republican, I'm like, why is my party so against people voting? Why are they trying to make people not vote? I don't feel good about that.
The same thing that hindered them throughout the whole election, though. That same, they didn't want people to vote so bad that they pushed themselves away from voting. They lost.
The Georgia stuff has got to go down as, to me, the worst political moves. Donald Trump's like, stay home. Like, no, what are you doing?
You're
right?
Yeah.
Again, I mean, if they wanted to win this election, they should have passed a COVID stimulus bill and gotten the vaccine out. But
I know. Instead, he threw a hissy fit and he said, nah, fam, I'm not doing that unless you vote for me. He literally tried to blackmail people into voting for him. He thought that would work. And now he's trying to file a lawsuit.
He's still pushing. There has to be some kind of financial gain or financial benefit for him to keep pushing this agenda or something, because he's literally beating a dead horse with the same stick that didn't work last time.
I think he's trying to take the attention away from him literally going to jail.
Did you see when just a day or two before the impeachment, half the legal team quit because they wanted to argue one thing and he wanted to argue that the election was fraudulent, and it's like, dude, shut up. Please stop saying that. And they literally they parted ways with the president just before the impeachment. And again, I think and the questions come up a few times in the comment section, and I think it bears discussion as we wrap it up here. As a country, how do we move forward? We're still at a point where I still know people that think that the election was sketchy. Who are afraid of that the socialism's coming, all these amazing, weird, crazy conspiracy theories. We're not on the same page. We're outraged by different things. How do we get back on track. I don't know. I really don't know what the answer is. Again, we can't even find common ground on getting people help for COVID. One side's like, no, and the other side's like, here's a pittance. Again, I think the Democrats come up woefully short on what they're giving the American people. Maybe you lock people up for a year in their homes and you're like, here's $2,000. What? Really?
Meanwhile, Canada was getting $2,000 a month.
A month? Yeah. Give me a break. This is the greatest country in the world, but boy, again, always worried about the 1%. Never worried about everybody else. And the lower you go down the rung, the worse things are for you. And that's America today. Still a great country, but tons of room for improvement.
How are we the greatest country when we have the greatest issues, it seems like?
But you know what, Rob, if you go to any other country I would say this, there's probably about 30 countries in the world where we could even have a discussion like this publicly.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So that in and of itself makes this place special. The other thing about this country that to me elevates it above all else is that there's a separation of church and state. Thank goodness. Because it would be, it's barely, and I mean, they're fighting for dear life to not give any of that political power up, but that's a real issue. And again, I don't know how you fix that going forward.
We'll see.
Honestly, I literally couldn't tell you. I feel like we're going to be in this for a pretty long time, and I'm actually kind of scared because he's running again, and you guys don't seem to think that it's possible, but I do, because I feel like he could be president when he's 100, just because people would think it was funny, because people only voted for him because they thought it was funny last time, and I feel like they might forget in the span of 4 years. So
I don't know how that guy's even still alive.
I don't see him being alive.
Just based on, I mean, how many quarter pounders can you possibly eat and
Diet Cokes?
And Diet Coke. Let me tell you this. I stopped drinking soda. I used to be addicted to Diet Coke. I swear to God, I was on the Trump diet. It was not okay. Not good for me. But I stopped drinking soda because I'm 19 and I felt it. I was like, I can only imagine what Trump feels like right now.
Start juicing.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much for watching this episode of Divided We Stand. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, you can honestly catch more of Rob and Joe on I'll Piss You Off Shortly at 9. You can head over there right now. Also, if you want to watch any of our old episodes, we are on iTunes, Divided We Stand. We're on clovercrestmedia.com/Divided We Stand. Facebook, like our page, the whole shebang. We'll catch you next time, Mondays at 8. Bye.